Hello everyone, Vegan Mark here. I feel really compelled to do a video on my favorite literature, and it's something that I've avoided for a long time in this channel. But I have a very elitist taste in literature, and I'm going to share that with you now after having been inspired by a video by that vegan lawyer on the 40 best books ever written, according to me. That's the name of the video, so you can look that up. Whew. That video brought me to tears, and it made me cry, and it made me think, and it brought back all those memories of some of the books that I read in the past, and I just wanted to share the moment with you because it's just such an incredible retrospective look at some of the things that books can give to us, how amazing books are, and how wonderful they are, and how valuable knowledge can be. So let me start off with my favorite books and go through some of the reasons why they are my favorites. In as well as in music, but not in visual art, I have an elitist taste which accords with like the reputations of the authors. So my favorite author in all time is like Shakespeare. Not necessarily the Bible, because the Bible is up there as well, according to some people. People think the Bible is a great work of literature and so on, and they respect it and revere it. I don't see the Bible in the same way as I used to. Although I think the words of Jesus Christ are very important and they have some imperative qualities to them. I don't think Jesus is quite as good as I used to think when I was hardcore Christian, that sort of thing, and really getting into the text. So, why is Shakespeare the best? Shakespeare's Hamlet is my favorite play, and it's no coincidence that it's also the greatest play ever written in the English language, according to most scholars. It's the greatest because it addresses the fundamental predicament of human existence and the decisions that we make to take control of what we need to take control of, or what we feel that we need to take control of. So, the way that Hamlet deals with his predicament is so beautiful and so innate and internal, and the characters and all the dialogue is so amazingly put together that it's just an amazing creation, the whole play. Um, Patricia Nonis, who's that vegan lawyer who I mentioned earlier, did mention Macbeth as her favorite Shakespearean play. She thinks it's the greatest play that Shakespeare wrote. So, what do I think of Macbeth? I think it's an important play, but I don't think it's quite as important as Hamlet. I think that ambition that drives Macbeth is obviously a grand theme in human nature. Um, but I don't think it's necessary for people to be ambitious and kill themselves over their ambitions. So I would say Hamlet is the better play, and it's a play. I would much rather play Hamlet, who is a much more noble and dignified and sort of royal character than Macbeth, who I feel is a little bit corrupt and a little bit sleazy almost. So what else about Shakespeare? I appreciate a lot of his other plays. I'm just thinking of a few, like A Midsummer Night's Dream. King Lear I quoted a lot. King Lear is very dramatic, without being particularly philosophical or anything. So yeah, it's a good play. What else did Shakespeare write? I don't like Shakespeare's sonnets that much. Some of his sonnets are okay, but they're they're just what he would have written, and they're not particularly remarkable. I've written what I call sex sonnets. I wrote 100 sex sonnets at one stage, and thought that they were quite good, but they weren't very good either. So Shakespeare also wrote things like Richard III, Henry V. Henry V is quite a good play because it's very pragmatic sort of play and talks about how to overcome great adversity in the face of adversity, how to overcome great adversity. And I think his audience were very receptive to that, and he made a great impression on people because of the way he put war into a dramatic context and a psychological context as well. I have some strange other tastes. The only other book that I can think of, I'm just trying to think. The only book that I would really return to a lot is something like The Catcher in the Rye by JD Salinger, which was mentioned by Patricia Nonis as well in her video. The Catcher in the Rye is very timeless. It's a sort of semi, I wouldn't say cynical, but kind of lopsided, depressed way of looking at life when you're a dropout teenager. And the way that he expresses himself is so vivid and so true to life that you are immediately taken aback by how beautiful his expressions are. He goes around the streets of New York looking for friends and trying to link up with old friends and so on. And in some ways he succeeds, much more than I would succeed. But the way he expresses his downfalls and his downcastness and his depression and his being at odds with society is so beautiful that one is taken aback by the beauty of his expressions. And it's such a short book that you could read it in a short amount of time, but it blows you away how much life is in that character, how much life is in the person who just walks around the streets and finds all sorts of weird and strange observations about what goes on in that city. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of things like homosexuality. Even pedophilia is a relevant semi-issue or semi-theme of that book. But and it affects me greatly because I have expectations toward children and so on, and I feel that it's so relevant to everything that I'm thinking of, my whole cognizance of the salient things in my life. Such a beautifully put together book that it just blows you away. I also like Paul Jennings' books. Paul Jennings is a children's author in Australia. He's quite popular, but I wouldn't say he's regarded as a like literature in the sense of literature being a great work of art or something. I think Paul Jennings is very skillful. I think that his works are very, very skillful, and I've tried to emulate him in the past with my own stories and so on, and very rarely have I been able to emulate him. Whereas I have been able to emulate Shakespeare. I have been able to emulate the Bible and even ironically emulate aspects of the Bible in so many ways with my own writing, such as my poem Inland Surfer, which is my greatest poem ever written. And I would argue one of the greatest poems ever written, in my opinion, even though I wrote it myself. But enough about my humble bragging. But Paul Jennings is really good. I mean, in terms of the skill of his art, it's he's amazing. He's uh, don't look down on people who write books which seem to be a little bit comic or a little bit trivial because they can be very, very powerful in their own way. And the way that he thinks about life and the way that he gets these twists in the tail with his stories is quite remarkable. In the same way that Roald Dahl, who's a Norwegian author, who I dealt with a lot as a kid, is not really remarkable. He's good. He's a good storyteller, but there's no pathos or kind of real weirdness or esoteric quality to his works. It's very straightforward, and yeah, he makes us laugh. He's got humor, and I think he's a little bit too cliched. Roald Dahl's a little bit too cliched for me in most ways. So, who else do I like? Another book that I would demean quite a lot is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. It was mentioned by Patricia Nonis in her video that inspired this video, but I don't think To Kill a Mockingbird is very good. It's also a little bit stereotypical, um, and myself not being a racist as such, I don't feel that it's a very important book compared to The Catcher in the Rye, which I feel is much more important. Thematically, it's much more stronger and more relevant to today's society. So I was just bringing out my DVD, which I bought recently. I bought 3 copies of this. Home Alone is my favorite comedy. It's about a little kid who gets the better of a number of thieves who try to invade his house while his parents are away. And I think that it's a great, well put together comedy, and it's something that I really appreciate. I appreciate the craft of that comedy. I appreciate the cinematic craft of that movie. And although I'm not a movie buff and I don't know much about movies and I can't follow a lot of movies, the ones that I can follow, I really, really love. And that's one of them. Home Alone is just one of them. So get around to reading lots of Shakespeare because that is really powerful stuff. Shakespeare is really, really powerful. I don't subscribe to a lot of the political books that Patricia Notice mentioned. Well, it's not that I don't subscribe to them, it's just that I'm probably not going to read them because I feel that her quibbles in politics are a little bit too extraneous and a little bit irrelevant to most things in real life. I'm not a politician. I don't think politics is very exciting, and I don't think it's very innovating. It's a lot of just bullshit and false philosophication and that sort of thing. But two of the books that really, really struck my inspiration in Patricia Nonis's presentation were The Art of War by is it Sun Tzu or something? I'm not sure the author's name. And Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov or something. These are two books that I'm absolutely dying to read now because the first one, The Art of War, talks about how you should never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. And I was just thinking about my relationship with mental health authority and how they are always making mistakes, and I would never interrupt them when they make mistakes about their reports or the way they try and force drugs on me, that sort of thing. I don't know what The Art of War is about, but I'm dying to read how I can make use of that information and become a better statesman or war person or warrior, you could call it. The other one is Lolita, and it's about a pedophile who falls is seduced by a 12-year-old girl or something. And I know nothing about that, but apparently, according to Patricia, it's one of the most sort of evocative and lucid, like artistically well-crafted books in her list. So I can't wait to read that. It'd be amazing to read that. So this video has been about my love of books, and I just love reading, and I just the fact that I haven't read a novel from cover to cover for so many years. I'm just dying to get back into that at some stage, at my earliest opportunity. And if you like books, join my book club, and we'll get together and read something really, really important and meaningful. Okay. All the best, and see you in the next video. Bye for now.